Good evening, this is Bryce Hall, and my group was Lakaw, Alvin, and Tuala. Our subject was Algebra 1, and the title of the lesson was It Won't Happen to Me, based on Waiting to Inhale. It was a 55-minute lesson. Central focus of the unit was to analyze the simple, draw a conclusion, and provide a counterexample for the population we're looking at. Long-term smokers that have health issues or emphysema. Related skills would be their ability to calculate the mean and find probability of an independent event. The content focus was to express the importance of test sample size and composition when generalizing statements to describe a population or individuals in the population. And finally, to define the term counterexample and use appropriate counterexamples to disprove certain statements. The standards that this lesson covered was the high school statistics and probability, analyze decisions and strategies using probability concepts, and then again from that same section to recognize the purposes and differences among sample surveys, experiments, and observational studies, and explain how randomization relates to each of those. The instructional learning objectives were to express the importance of test sample size and composition when generalizing statements to describe a population or individuals within a population, to define the term counterexample as used in mathematics, and use appropriate counterexamples to disprove certain statements. The assessments, formal and informal. Formal, students are to record thoughts and questions on emphysema worksheet from the Waiting to Inhale lesson, turn in by the end of class. And then two informal assessments would be to ask each group to share their conclusions drawn from examining the samples, and also hold a class discussion to talk about the implications of the activity. Language function and demands. Language functions. Reading, students can evaluate the approach to analyze a problem from reading through the lesson plan worksheet. Speaking, they can describe and talk to each other the steps that students might take to generalize a statement after a test sample, and they will learn the definition of counterexample and how to use this to disprove certain statements in mathematics. And then finally, writing, to solve the practice problem on the worksheet and make final statements to conclude the result, as well as define counterexamples to disprove statements. Additional language demands would for vocabulary or population, define counterexample, probability, and sampling, and the syntax would be focusing on percentage and analyzing samples. Resources and materials needed. The students would need M&Ms or other small candies that we would use to represent different samples of populations, bowls to fill and separate the candies, and then the Waiting to Inhale or emphysema in the population worksheet that we were given, as well as a pen or pencil, something to write with. Their prior knowledge, students should already be familiar with simple statistical measures such as calculating the mean and finding the probability of independent events. The introduction and anticipatory set, transition from previous activity would be, we're assuming students have been introduced to basic statistical terms. We would start by recalling those concepts, introducing the topic of health issues from smoking, and ask the class what they thought the average or mean number of people given a certain population of smokers have had emphysema or other health issues due to smoking. The hook for purpose for learning, we'd ask students if they know anyone who's had emphysema or other health issues from smoking to relate it to their own life, and then ask a question regarding statistics on what they would think or know people smoke have had emphysema or lung cancer, and what the correlation might be and what the probability might be having health issues from smoking. The focused instruction, we would take the different colors of candies, break them up into individual groups. As you can see here, candy A, long-term smokers over 60 who suffer from emphysema. Candy B, long-term smokers over 60 who do not. Candy C, all others over 60. Candy D, smokers under 60. Candy E, non-smokers under 60. Then we would separate them out and look at the probabilities with them. For differential scaffold, when students are not sure what to do, walk around individually, ask what they don't understand, and then write the explanation on the board so they have a better understanding visually with a graphic representation. At the end, we could, for the we do, we have a class guided instruction. We talk about the different percentages. As you can see here, create some charts, show them how those percentages work out. And then again, for differentiated scaffold, take a little extra time to work with students who are struggling with that. And then the you do part, independent practice, section 3 and 4 from the worksheet we were given, Waiting to Inhale, requires students to work independently, and they would do that part by themselves. Again, different scaffold. We'd use paraeducator from a small group with IEPs to work on this part, have another smaller group with English learners, and I would work with them. Students that finish this section quickly will get up and help classmates that are struggling. When we get closure, we would tie together all the concepts of appropriate sampling and experimental probability, counterexamples, and the interpretation of statements to the context of different diseases related to smoking. We'd have students comment to each other and discuss statements they often hear at school, at home, and in the media, that smokers get lung cancer and emphysema. Thank you.